I am now joined by the Daily Show co creator, also the founder of Abortion Access Front, Lizz Winstead. Thanks for joining us, Liz.
Thank you so much for having me, Adrienne.
And I'm sure you are extremely busy right now, especially given all the shenanigans that are coming out of the Supreme Court, largely based on what we've seen in Texas with this 6-week abortion situation. Can you please give our viewers a sum of what has all of this been about?
So it's all been about oppression and misogyny and patriarchy, but Texas has tried its darndest to make sure that reproductive rights, health, and justice are destroyed as we know it in the state of Texas. And this latest scheme has defied even the most cynical of those of us who have been working in this area for a long time. You know, we've watched them come up with a million different ways of having abortion conspiracy theories, like abortion reversal. And so when I heard that the Texas legislature had proposed a law that would deputize any human being and put a $10,000 bounty on a Texan who was pregnant trying to have abortions, even my cynical heart said the Supreme Court will in no way allow this to stand. It's clearly unconstitutional from every angle you could possibly come at it from. And yet there it was. And the end results are people are terrified to practice. People don't know that abortion is still legal in Texas. Desperate people in Texas, poor people, people of color who are affected the most by oppressive laws, are trying to find places where they can have procedures. And when you look at sort of the landscape that is Texas, if you go to Oklahoma, there's a 72-hour waiting period. Arkansas has jumped on the bandwagon of trying to do a copycat law. And so activists from around the country are desperately trying to help people out. One thing that people need to understand is you can help somebody in Texas access an abortion outside of the state of Texas because Texas can't create laws outside of its own state. The federal government is trying to come up with ways to curb this law, but I honestly don't know how they're going to do it. So aside from somebody stepping up and being a plaintiff and trying to get somebody to access the care they need, us flooding the court system with pressing charges against Ted Cruz's wife and Greg Abbott and every other person I can think of who is causing Texas to be a hostile space to have a child. And then in turn, maybe having people consider terminating pregnancies, maybe we hold them accountable. You know, everyone's trying to come up with creative ways to shut this law down and prove that it's the unconstitutional garbage that we all know it to be.
And it's so incredibly interesting too, because we know that Texas legislature came up with this creative way to essentially punish and stigmatize individuals who have abortions that begin at approximately 6 weeks of pregnancy. And so it put us all in the position to figure out how are we going to combat this. And so, you know, I think a lot of people, when they hear that abortions are essentially effectively banned in Texas and that we have all these other states modeling their laws after Texas, a lot of people think, oh, it's okay, it doesn't impact me. But what is your thoughts on why people should really oppose this abortion ban, you know, even though they don't think it directly impacts them?
Well, I think that I feel bad that we live in a country where people can look at this large state of oppression and think that it doesn't affect them, because if it's affecting your fellow human, it's affecting you. And so any law that allows and deputizes the government or private citizens to take control, ownership, and of another person's healthcare choices, and especially ones that are legal in this country and that have been held up by the Supreme Court, that should terrify you. If you don't see how it affects you, eventually it will. You have your head in the sand. But I think that also, I think people need to understand that all we have is what's inside of our skin, right? Our humanity is what we should have and should be able to have control over. And so to have this brazen dehumanization of people. It's a terrifying path with which we are going down, and it's time that we all understand and stand up and fight it. And people don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. And the cavalier nature with which Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, said yesterday, someone asked him, how does this affect somebody who is impregnated in the cases of rape and incest? And he was like, rape is bad. And also you have 6 weeks if you get pregnant from your rape. And it's like, does he actually think that only rape occurs the first day of your last menstrual period? What is he even saying? It's so absurd and so callous and so cruel that I don't even know where to begin.
No, this misogyny. It's surreal, this thought that my body better than I do and science does. And the fact that it's wild out there, these thoughts, in addition to the impact that an abortion ban will have. It was the Institute for Women's Policy Research, how they said Texas abortion ban, it's going to result in $15 billion in economic loss for women and businesses in the state of Texas. And so there's a lot of significant loss here, in addition to women and people who bear children, their right to lose really the opportunity to control their bodies. And so if you could help viewers really fully understand the bigger picture of all that is going on and what we are losing by virtue of Texas's ignorance.
Well, and I think that oftentimes we forget that deciding whether or not you want to have a family and your capacity with which to have that family is your first step to your own self-determination, spiritually, economically, and all of that. I find it so interesting when people are like, women don't care about abortion, they care about economic issues. And one of the biggest economic issue that women take on is how do I, and will I, and how do I financially have a family that can thrive and be healthy? And so the larger scope of all of this is you're taking away a gigantic decision that people make that will guide the rest of their self-determination. And if we can't fundamentally understand what's at stake for that person, and then in turn, like you said, for the state of Texas and for states that will put up massive roadblocks to the economic future of people because it's cut them out of the marketplace, the workplace, the power structure, the corporate structure. This is where we're at. And there's so many of these abortion bans that are already in place that have started to do that. When you look at waiting periods, which more than half of our country has a waiting period on abortion, which means you have to wait 24, 48, 72 hours before you can have the procedure because the state has decided that women haven't made or thought enough about the decision they're making. And what that does is it sets up a societal standard where we say, we don't trust that women are going to make good decisions about their own healthcare and families. And that's going to expand out past reproduction. That means that if we decide as a society we don't trust women to make decisions that are good and we have to have them wait and think about it because they're just irrational, that's going to transfer into workplace. Do I want to hire this person to run my company? Do I want to hire this person to be here? And all of a sudden we have created a substandard humanity for those of us with uteruses. And we really need to take stock of that.
Absolutely. And so individuals who want to get involved and to help individuals who are impacted by this Texas ban, what should they do?
So I think the best thing that you can do right now is go to my organization, Abortion Access Front. It's Abortion Access, aafront.org. And we have, go to our volunteer page and our resources page, and it will list all of the places in Texas that you can help that are actually fighting back, a list of places you can donate, and a list of things that Texans and people who work in the repro space in Texas have asked us to relay to our people of what they need. If you're a person who has had an abortion and would like to tell the Supreme Court that you value that, there's a brief that you can sign on to that will go to the court at wetestify.org. So if you want to say, my abortion has made me a better person and has given me opportunities. You can sign on to that. And also write your congresspeople and say, sign on to the Women's Health Protection Act, because that will codify Roe v. Wade into our federal laws so that abortion will be protected on a federal level.
That is so incredibly important. Thank you so much for that. In part because this dire desire to control predominantly women as individuals with uterus, we see it happen every day, and we're going to continue to see it until people essentially stand up and speak up, even if it doesn't necessarily directly impact them. So thank you so much for joining us, Lizz Winstead, Daily Show co-creator, also founder of Abortion Access Front. We really appreciate all the work you're doing.
Appreciate you just highlighting the work. Thank you.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.